Okay. So I believe we are live and global on several media, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining to the second live that we have with Nishan on on-site monetization and effect of e-commerce on retail. So, Nishan, do you hear me well?
Yeah, I do. Good morning.
Okay, so that's great. Now let's start. I think, Nishan, I think it would be good to have some summary of the discussion that we had from previous week. Then we discuss about the topics that we want to talk this week. Or
Yeah,
like is this month in some sense. Anyway, we have this monthly meeting, third Monday of each month, and then we are going there. We are going and we have a deep dive into several things. We have future guests as well that we talk, the people who are well known in the field. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, Manas, our regular moderator, could not be here this week because he's out sick, but he should be back the following third Monday. So we're running this as Monetization Monthly, which is a conversation that brings together a group of e-commerce and marketplace professionals working on revenue optimization and growth. And as kind of Dr. Mohammad mentioned, we'll probably have guest speakers the next month. So please be sure to check that out as well. For also last month, we covered just overview of kind of the e-commerce landscape and did a lot to kind of establish what kind of opportunities exist for revenue optimization and growth. And in today's session, we hope to go in a little bit deeper into COVID, how businesses have kind of had to adapt through it, and how can they best position themselves coming out of this pandemic. We'll also touch privacy and personalization and what it means to be shifting away from a cookie-enabled personalization to a cookie-less world. So lots of that and exciting conversations lined up. Let's start. So I think, Dr. Mohammad, maybe let's start with, COVID. What have you seen in terms of how businesses have had to adapt and kind of what that means from an AI as well as a revenue optimization growth perspective?
Great. Thanks. And sorry, I was looking at the different media to make sure that everything is working because we are handling the backend as well. Great. So I think everything works fine. And again, for everyone on the the live, please feel free to ask questions. We will be happy to answer. You can do it at YouTube chat, or you can do it at Instagram. You can always email me at my last name, hajiaghayi@gmail.com. Also, you can do it at LinkedIn. These are the three good places that that you can do it, or Facebook. You can do that as well. Great. Now, let's start, as you mentioned, with the COVID. Of course, COVID boosted everything. And one thing that had a very big effect is that the infrastructure that has been created. So like before COVID, if you want to talk with some person, if you are a company, you want to work remotely, or you want to talk with some, I don't know, researcher in the field, if you say, let's do it online, the people always had some doubt that whether the quality would be good. The expectation was that when you go there and you will, start, generally does not work, and you need to do you need to be more tech savvy and like more techie person such that you can make sure it works. We were using actually this one for collaboration back, I don't know, 2007 or something. At that time, there was no Zoom, or even not the Hangout was very bad at that time. But there were some other, like Skype we were using, and with screen share, we are trying to do that. But during the COVID, everything has changed. So all Zoom, Hangout, everything created, because now the people are at home and they can do the Zoom, or they can do Hangout, Teams, etc. And now the people, actually one other thing that is important maybe here that we talk about COVID, but I will say even nowadays, the past few months is that the gas prices were high. I actually, that's my things that again, that boosted using online things, because some people, they want to go to the work and come back. They need to pay something like $10 or something like this just for the gas. That would be much cheaper for them to just be at the house and just do it online or remotely. So I think that's somehow the gas prices also help. So this is not just COVID, but some other things. But anyhow, COVID created this whole idea of the infrastructure for remote works. And of course, when the people are at home and they are working from home, their computer is there, and like they are in their personal room or personal property. Even as I mentioned, so some people that even the people who go to the office, sometimes they are next to each other, but because some other people are offline, they will just do the meeting over Zoom or like one of these. Now, the fact is that the people are alone more. What's the meaning of that? It means that they have time now to go to their, probably they are not going to their computer from work, but still they have their own computer, they have own cell phone. It means that these people will be online. And of course, when you are talking, maybe you have a meeting. After the meeting, you have a few minutes. Then you may go and check your mobile, and you may at the beginning, you like in the middle, you may decide to just order something from Amazon. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly the point, that now the people are more online, and not only that, they are more online in a personal way, not too many distractions, or even like, that like if you are a father in the house, you're working, so the kids may not come even to you. So you have lots of free time that you can do it for your own work, but at the same time, you are in the personal space. So you may also check some other things, and you may go to your Facebook, you may like social media, or like this kind of the places that you can see online, any essential online resources. That's the things that actually cause a lot of boost, because the people now are spending more time. More time means that in some sense, any time that you are doing, this is some money that you will bring for these companies online. Mm-hmm. It can be retail, it can be any other e-commerce type of things. And and now the infrastructure is also very good, maybe even better now. Maybe some people became more like they go to work or something, like a little bit, the whole traffic maybe went a little bit down. So in some sense, the quality went up with the same infrastructure that has been already created. So that's a great opportunity for these companies to essentially make a lot of money. And again, as I mentioned, we think about COVID, but I will say actually COVID may be just a cause that created a better infrastructure. Now, anything happens that, like, say, I don't know, some war situation happens for some country, or like the gas prices go up. Anything that the people think that, okay, they are safer or they much easier for them to be at home, that's a place that these people like a retailer and others will get the benefit out of.
Yeah. To just add to that, right? So like what we've seen with the pandemic is an acceleration of the move towards online and e-commerce, right? Like for various reasons, like you mentioned earlier, like we had lockdown for quite some time. And so people weren't able to engage in a lot of other recreation activities. So like shopping became a recreation activity that you can easily engage from home. And for like stores that were not e-commerce, it became like, because people couldn't visit the physical stores, it became critical for them to be able to have a presence online. And on top of that, I'd say like, because people couldn't go into the stores to kind of like to shop and buy stuff, like omni-channel started having much more of a presence too. And then people started interpreting that in lots of different ways, which is like, so I don't recall of a order and pick up kind of service. We had that for kind of food delivery and stuff, but not for regular other kinds of items you were buying. But that's become a lot more prevalent now. You can do that at like Home Depot and hardware goods. You can do that at like papercraft goods, almost any kind of store you can think of, even Walmart. Walmart has a big pickup kind of service. So I think, companies reacted to kind of the pandemic by increasing a lot more of these flexible options that no longer required you, the customer, to kind of go browse these aisles, right? And once people get used to this, the question is like, what is the stickiness of something of this sort? And what we're seeing coming out of it is like, there is kind of like people are going into shops more, but it's not the same level as it used to be before. Like people are certainly getting used to kind of doing more online and minimizing, like you said, with gas prices, minimizing the number of trips, minimizing needing to get out there, and certainly being a lot more used to kind of shopping online.
Yeah, and actually, just to add, I mean, on something like a few days ago, I want to go to Home Depot to buy something. And then I went there, essentially, maybe took me around almost 35 minutes to go to that particular Home Depot that I had it. It turns out I went there, we searched for 1 hour and we couldn't find that item there. How it says that the website is there. And then I need to came back. So 2 hours of my things has been just lost to just, right. And don't, at the same time, I didn't even find that item.
So one question, could you have bought it online? Could you have bought this item?
Exactly. Online? So, and I mean, I talked with this guy and said, why don't you buy online? And I said, okay, I wanted to say, maybe I will get it right now. I went and said, oh, this is the online. And actually that's the thing. Even the people associate like at Home Depot, they are recommending to buy online. It's not just the case that in some sense it may cost them their job because then maybe less people are needed on site. But they say, oh, why don't you get it online? And now I say, oh, that's actually much better to even Home Depot. Because, I mean, when we talk about Amazon, it's a company that is based on the online things. But Home Depot is the one that you think that this is like everything is that the people should go and shop from Home Depot. They recommend that now they don't feel, I mean, like maybe at some point they were afraid of Amazon, but they are bringing more technology here. And that's exactly the thing that we try to, I mean, understand more, that now even Home Depot said, why I'm completely fine if you go online and buy from me still. And I can give you good prices, and the prices actually sometimes cheaper than Amazon even, because they have probably, they can minimize also the cost of shipping, etc., because they have now lots of stores. And it was much more efficient. I have just in a few clicks, I have put it. The only thing is that they mentioned that, oh, you will come in like 5 days. But even then, when I got the email, said, oh, that comes 2-3 days sooner than the one that they promised.
Yeah.
So that seems like a perfect things. And now, again, that was pre-pandemic. Maybe Home Depot didn't want to send the people there, or they felt a lot of competition from Amazon. Not anymore, because now they can actually compete well with Amazon. And they can get the prices better. The people buy from them, and they can test some of these, something that at Amazon they cannot do that. So that actually seems a very good thing for them. And
one other really interesting thing here is like we've seen a lot of kind of labor shortage recently as well, for various reasons, right? Like people felt like they didn't need to kind of continue, or they didn't want to work the same way they did before. And this causes exactly what you said, like because these stores are short-staffed. And almost like all stores currently seem to be short-staffed, right? Like the same is true of the restaurant industry as well. Because they're short-staffed, like the workers on the ground will ask you to go online because, they're barely able to keep up with the demand that they have. But that demand, like that excess demand, is really due to like a shortage in supply of labor, if you will, at these places. So that's also like because of the shortage coupled with kind of the pandemic effects, that's also pushing people online a lot quicker than they did. And the other thing you mentioned, like Home Depot, like these stores that are able to compete on prices with Amazon, now they are offering a lot of kind of additional kind of mechanisms, like you said. Like I had the exact same thing. So like what I started doing with Home Depot is I would order online but pick up in store, and that usually takes about a day or so. But I get to avoid this exact problem you said in terms of not being able to locate a thing. And then the further exacerbation of that problem is you can't even locate like a store, somebody to help you in the store. So like you can at least avoid those things by ordering online and then going to pick it up. And you can still evaluate return right there if you want to and stuff. So yeah, super, super interesting change.
Yeah, actually, I want to compare this one. I was reading this one about the self-checkout machines, essentially. That was some of the things that I was reading, and I think it was around 1950 or 1960 that they have started, maybe around that time, maybe a bit later or after, before. And then it started this self-checkout. And at the beginning, the people were very suspicious about that.
Uh-huh.
And that was, and they knew that, okay, when you do the self-checkout, all things can happen. I mean, some people may not pay it correctly, or, I mean, something, I don't know, some maybe, like maybe there's, because of this no precision, I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, you may lose something. But I mean, somehow in terms of revenue, maybe. But the issue that then you need to pay these guys to, I mean, otherwise you need to have some kind of associate that they are doing the checkout for you. And the cost of paying them and the insurance, etc., it would be much, much higher. I think until recently that even Costco, apparently one of the companies that resisted that, they brought it. Then they said that we don't want it anymore, but they are apparently bringing even those more people also bring their checkout or lots of Walmart things. So in some sense, this is the same thing. So this is the cost. There might be some pros and cons for that, but at the end, because of the cost, because this cost of, I mean, buying and selecting and choosing, showing, all of them, you just transfer it from your associate that you need to pay for them and for their benefits, etc. You just essentially put it on the customer side. Yeah. And as long as you can compete well with the other companies, you will do it. And I think that's the whole idea that, I mean, for example, Home Depot has this good thing that there are lots of stores nearby. You will go and buy some of this and you get it. And also there are something like, for example, if you are selling flower or trees or something like this, that probably cannot do it online. Or maybe, I think, at least until now, maybe they will also have some of that they can bring it to your house. And the price of also bringing to house, also price of shipping became better in a sense that, I mean, the people have now more fulfillment centers. There are companies who are expert in this area. The same way that you have Uber, they have lots of these companies, delivery companies, that they are doing very efficiently this one. So they can transfer that cost. I mean, of course, there is a cost here, but the cost would be probably much lower than, I mean, the cost that you have a person that do the checkout for you this amount of time. That takes some money. I mean, you need to pay some money there. And in that way that you can save there essentially.
Right.
So in some sense, we have this kind of pandemic and now maybe higher gas prices, and there might be several other events. And all of them bring essentially people online. And the issue is that when the people come online, probably some of them, they may go offline. But again, for me, I was used to for Home Depot to go there, but I'm not doing that much more. From Amazon, always I ordering from Amazon. But I say, no, why should I go to Home Depot? They actually deliver something if it's not heavy freely to your house as well.
Right.
So that's essentially the best of all worlds. Why should I go there? And that's the thing that means that there is great opportunities for the people. And again, it may go up and down, but probably not that much.
I mean, the incremental value, right? If you don't immediately need it, waiting like a day versus 2 days, I don't know. I think that trade-off people are starting to question too. Like I certainly question it. And like I know these systems are getting a lot better. Like I know shipping and delivery times are getting much better. So, you know, I'm more inclined to trust companies in that exactly when they say 5 days, I'm willing to trust that it's going to be less than 5 days, but maybe the algorithm isn't caught up enough to give you the most accurate estimate in terms of delivery time as well.
Great. Yeah, and of course, I mean, this is some of the things, for example, when I was at Amazon, they were, I mean, working a lot on this one to get it. I think they had even somehow the same day and maybe the few hours, was it 4 hours or something like this? They have such kind of increase shipping, and then this will happen. I mean, the people, this is exactly the whole idea is just the infrastructure. You will have it one way or the other. You will have such an infrastructure that doing more efficiently.
Right.
Because this is some kind of facility location problem. I mean, just if you want to do more about the theory side, that, I mean, you have some kind of facilities, you want to bring it like close to the customer such that, and you have enough resources that they can do the shipment. And this will happen. I mean, it may take a bit more time, but will happen. And I think that's the way that the people will go there. And at the same time, there are these companies like Meta that they are doing, I mean, essentially like talking about the metaverse, VR, and like virtual reality or other type of, I think, combined reality or something like this. And we had actually some of this lives. I had it with Professor Minglin and Professor Dinesh Manucha. These are very nice problems there that, I mean, they try to also make sure that everything that you have at house is as real as when you go out. For example, one thing that they were thinking, I mean, this is like an important thing, that if you are here, this was actually a very nice research problem, that if someone comes from like from your back, you don't see that person, you will hear some noise. Can we actually create that noise as a virtual reality? Just think about it. It's very important because you want to bring the virtual reality such that the people will, I mean, feel that when they are home, they can get everything of the things that when they go out, essentially. And even in these small things, how can we simulate that sound, essentially, to make it as real as possible? So these are all things that are built on this concept of being online. Now that you are online, we are giving much more services to you. And these services keep you again more online. So it's kind of boosting things that happen. And of course, I mean, any companies who are working on this kind of retail business, I think that would be like very successful. And as I mentioned, this may go a little bit easier at some point. The people maybe at the winter time, at the summertime, they may want to travel more. But again, in the winter time, again, another time that it's a bad weather. Should I go to work, or can just work from home? Why should I go and drive in the rain or snow or something like this while I can do it at work? This is something that probably before you couldn't do it that much because the people, again, because the quality was not high. But here the weather today is not good. So I just, I'm working from offline, from home. And this is actually one important thing. Like if you see, for example, for Zoom or others, now the prospect again goes up because they say, oh, these are long-term solutions. That's not the case that they will go away because the pandemic is gone. Great. So I think we talk about this and also the things that will happen in the future. Now, let's go and talk a little bit more in the online world. So anything you want to add?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on this same topic. So like one thing we've seen is like forecasting errors have escalated quite a bit because of the pandemic, because it's not something you can necessarily predict, right? So like one example of this we've seen is like Amazon has bought like a lot of warehouses, probably like over, purchase warehouses than like true demand exists. And I know a similar story is true in terms of either having like massive inventory right now, or because like the supply chain problems have just exacerbated, like now, a lot of these shipments that weren't coming through were finally coming through. So like wanted to ask from a like retail company's perspective, like I can imagine like over the past few years, like before the pandemic, it was a fairly gradual increase in terms of e-commerce sales for, the portfolio of the company. But as soon as the pandemic happened, there was some anomalous event and you could no longer rely on these historical data. So like, how should companies think about their forecasting? How much value and importance should they place into these models that they use for forecasting?
Great. So I think this is a nice question, and I think, of course, I mean, feel free to add more to that. Like in some sense, we are talking about time series here. This is one of the main things that the people were doing. So we can do a little bit more technical here. So in time series, you try to do the predictions in the future. So in some sense, we have actually, I mean, even some papers, we call it prophet setting. Prophet means the person who can see the future. And you try to compare with that person. So like the reality in some sense. Of course, this plays a very important role in lots of these businesses. There are some different levels of this type of time series predictions. There are some of them like a stock market. If you can see what will happen in the future, you can make pure money there. And of course, that's hard things to do. Other things, and like even consider when you compute the probability of purchase, probability of click, how many you will sell when you put at this particular price? What would be the demand in a particular day from this region? All of them, these are the more time series that I will say that actually the stock market might be the hardest one. And these type of things might be like, I will say a bit easier because there are more terrains to that. And maybe the factors are not too many. That's like the things that may be easier to tackle with. And there are, of course, there are lots of algorithms to do that. Unfortunately, as far as we know, there are several papers, but still, then if you think about the neural nets, this is one of the area that if you go and read their like the research areas or research papers there, still more classic way are outperforming the neural nets essentially or deep nets in this area. And this is one research thinks that, I mean, the people claim for this particular thing they can get it, but I bet that if you get some of these more classic ones, like the, for example, random forest or similar things, XGBoost and others, you can actually get a very good results out of them comparing to these neural nets, or at least the effect of that is minimal. Yeah, so these are the type of things that the people are doing. And again, these are like a classic AI ML things that the people are using to get it. And they generally give, I mean, reasonable things. Again, time series in general is a hard problem, even for, like, if you think about stock prediction is very hard. Similar things like even probability of purchase, probability of click is not that easy. But the people are working on it. And so hopefully we will have better algorithms in the future on those.
So yeah, one thing I'd like to challenge on that is, like, I think this is actually a very hard problem. So like the Amazon example I was talking about, this is kind of, this is as of May 23rd, 2022. Amazon is reportedly seeking to vacate like at least 10 million square feet of warehouse space, perhaps as much as 30 million. So basically, they over forecasted the need for warehouse during the pandemic, and like even kind of like in one of the earnings calls, like CEO Andy Jassy mentioned that they're no longer chasing physical or staffing capacity, and he pegged the cost of excess capacity to Amazon in Q1 of 2022 as $2 billion. So this is something I think even the best players out there are getting wrong, right? In terms of, and I mean, I don't know the internals of what happened there, but I think one of the challenges there is either an over reliance on the forecast and like not questioning kind of whether the core assumptions of what led into your forecasting are still correct. And second, I think looking at more at the outcomes than looking at it to see if behaviors themselves have changed. So kind of like one thing I really like in terms of like forecasting models is these like additive trees, right? So which allows you to actually, interestingly, like Profit is like one of the libraries that like Facebook has put out there for time series forecasting. So like these kinds of additive trees allow you to isolate specific factors that then like add up to make your kind of combined estimate. And I think one ways, like very interesting ways businesses could engage in these kinds of forecasts is looking at those coefficients themselves and trying to determine if those conditions are still valid or not. So for example, like, coming out of the pandemic, one of the things companies could look at is like, if you add in a COVID factor and maybe you simulate some kind of distribution for what your COVID factor looks like, is that a reasonable expectation or not? I think, if more of these business conversations end up as we seem to be over forecasting or our assumptions around these things are valid or not, that could lead to a lot better operations for businesses themselves.
Yeah, actually, that's, I mean, you mentioned an interesting point just as this was some ironies going there. So like when I was at Amazon, that's one of the things that they were always complaining about, that they were writing like very long docs, spend a lot of, time on reviewing those docs and improve even in terms of the number of words in it to minimize it. And I mentioned that actually that makes sense a lot when you want to build a fulfillment center. But for a software, it might be better to just write the software and test it than do all this work. I mean, some documentation, of course, is needed and it's good, but not to the level of minimizing the number of words in a document. But that's actually interesting. If they have done correctly for fulfillment center, probably that should have not happened there, or at least the level, because that's, I mean, the cost there, it would be much easier for people to write the docs and get every aspect of it than building actually and buying a land and make it essentially a fulfillment center. And still apparently that was like it was too much in the forecast, and they have this problem. So this is a hard problem, as I mentioned. If you go from a stock market, then you go probability of purchase, probability of click, and the amount of space that you needed for the fulfillment center, etc. All of these are like time series predictions. And again, I mean, we discussed, for example, there are actually this another thing. This was profit inequality that I have mentioned from 1979. That's a very nice things in I think stopping theory, and this profit library by Facebook that you mentioned. And actually there might be some relation. I assume that some people actually knew about this profit inequality, that they put the name there, but that has exactly the same meaning in both of these things. Great. Any more points that we want to add?
No, this is it. Yeah, let's transition. Thank you.
Great. So I think we discussed that. We discussed some of this about the time series, and also, I mean, the fundamentals of post-pandemic time. But in some sense, there is no post-pandemic anymore. It might be post pandemic, but maybe now pre-high gas prices or something like this. So there are these events that are coming one after the other, and the diseases and others, they are working essentially. Viruses working all over the world as well to help us to stay home and use the e-commerce and online shopping, etc. Great. So I think let's go to the next things. Now we have discussed that and say that this is something that it will be there. It is not gone. There is no concept of post-pandemic. I mean, yes, the things may come down, but in some sense, it might be the case that Amazon sells those property, but I'm sure that someone else go and buy them and create another online thing on the same fulfillment center, essentially competing with Amazon. So in that sense, it's not completely gone. Good. Now let's go to the online and discuss some of the things about when we try to design algorithms online. And we discuss actually more in depth in the future lives as well with the expert in the field. But we want to go a little bit more in the e-commerce business. And like one person is coming and try to buy something from Amazon, Overstock, Wayfair, any other eBay. So at that time, I mean, that person in some sense, you try to, I mean, do some kind of personalization for that person. So it's a person, and you try to understand that person. In some sense, yes, it's a human, but for you, it might be just a set of parameters. And from this set of parameters, you want to say, what is the best item that I can give it to this person? And what is the things that, what should I show to this person? And that's the whole concept of essentially personalization, like how much you know this person, because that's very important. If you know that person very well, probably you can give the best things to him or her, and that maximize the probability of click or probability of purchase. And we are using both of them are the same thing. So probability of click or probability of purchase, these are very important, because if that goes high, it means that from each of them, you will get that event happens. In advertisement, generally, the people consider probability of click. In retail, the probability of purchase is very important as well. And that's actually maybe more important. And from that, I mean, when the purchase happens, a juice happens. This is like some cost that you are paying and some extra things that any marketplace essentially gets out of that money for the company. So the question is this one. So do you want to add anything about personalization? And then we can go to the concept of now cookieless. That's this. I think we discussed briefly this one previous time, the war between Facebook and Apple, essentially, that try to do more privacy, and that essentially hurts Facebook users. but now in some sense it it hurt somehow Facebook, but not only Facebook, but Facebook users, because now they need to go and pay to get those type of apps from App Store, so it's not free anymore. But yeah, we discussed that briefly. Please feel free to go there, but this is the cookieless world. So let's talk a little bit about personalization and cookieless world.
Yeah, actually, like one quick thing before we get to this, like personalization and privacy are often kind of seen in conflict of one another. First thing I think we should address is there a moral question here, in terms of is there such a thing as too much personalization? Is there value in not having personalization? Is there kind of morality that comes into this?
Great. So that's a question. So it's like I think that's actually something that comes from this concept of cookieless world in some sense, and the solutions to overcome that.
Okay,
so yes, so in some sense, yes, I mean, if you know this person, I mean, then it means that you know a lot about this person. So by definition, this is against any privacy measure. Because, I mean, some of this information, maybe I don't want that you know that. But in some sense, if you prevent me to know that, you may get also first, I mean, you may get less relevant things that you will come. And at the same time, also, I mean, you may need to pay more. Lots of apps, if they cannot show you ads, then you need to pay to buy them. So in some sense, these are some of information that you will sell to others, such that, I mean, you get some cheaper price for the services that you are doing, and probably I will say better quality things. So in some sense, these two, I will say, is not completely against each other. Somehow, there might be some nice trade-off. And I think that's exactly the word that we were talking about, some of these companies that they are doing this after cookieless world that we talk about that. So in some sense, there's a concept of personalization and privacy. I think the correct thing is that if, as long as I have some control over the things that I can sell to you, then I am happy, because I know that I get some benefit out of it. I get more relevant ads. At the same time, and that might be useful for me. And at the same time, also, I get some of these services that it would be cheaper for me if I don't sell it. This is like, you can think about Netflix. This is a good example that last few days, I think like a few days ago, we heard that they have now this advertisement business with Microsoft set up. Right. Then yes, I mean, before if you go to CEO, he was, or the higher administration, they were strictly against advertisement.
Right.
But now, so okay, it becomes too expensive. The people cannot buy it.
Right.
Just a service. So let's show them some advertisement and make it cheaper for them. Right. And of course, this cannot happen if I don't. So it would be the best. So in some sense, it is some work that you need to do it, such that you get a cheaper thing. It's not nothing. There is no free lunch. And it's better that some information that you will release is such that these are more relevant to the thing that you are interested in, because some of them might be actually interested and you may get some ideas out of it. So in some sense, there is between personalization and privacy, they can actually come very friendly if we find the right trade-off. And I think that's the whole idea about the cookieless world, that I wanted to define the cookieless world. So what is the cookieless world? The cookieless world is the one that actually came, I think that's, as we discussed, Apple, I think, was one of the pioneers, and then Google Chrome. Google was supposed to do it this year, but they delayed it because of, I think, probably the effect that saw from Apple. And whenever you have some kind of, when you go to website, etc., when you go to website of any website, those companies, generally, they are saving some of their variables. This is like the basic thing in programming. Some of these variables will be stored on your own computer. Why? That is very important, because next time that you will go there, you really don't want to start from the. So if you have been in some particular place, next time you will go, you will continue from that. You don't want to go from the essentially the first screen and find that place. You can think about this way that you just call a bank or any of these guys for the customer service. They will answer, so you need to talk with my supervisor, then another supervisor and another supervisor. All of a sudden, the phone essentially becomes disconnected. You will call them again. You don't want, I think that's the thing that currently, unfortunately, happens. You need to again start over and spend again 1 more hour talking with these guys. However, when you have these cookies, if there was some kind of concept of cookies there, the system could save your current situation in a set of variables. Next time that you will log into there or you will call them, say, oh, you have been here. You wanted to talk with this particular supervisor. And then they will just connect you to there. So you didn't need to repeat the story for every customer service again and ask for the manager and so on and so forth, waste a lot of time. So in some sense, cookie is an important thing. That you will save these things. And now, this is a good part of it that they are doing. Now, there are these systems, these cookies, the catch is that when you have a browser, it's generally on these variables will be saved in somehow that browser. Now, any other program that is coming to that, any other website, that can see those variables. And based on those variables, they can, oh, this guy went there at this time to this website, because you can essentially save everything. Note that to get back to that situation, you need to almost store every information about you, where were you, what did you want to buy, so on and so forth. You need to save all of them essentially on the that's some kind of variables of the browser. Now, next browser, that then when you go there for the next website, that website actually can read from that browser. The same, because they can read their own information and they know some standard names about others. They can read for others. So from these guys, they get a lot of information about you. What are the websites that you have been there? What did you want to essentially buy or sell during this time? And all information. So that's the reason that when you go to CNN, you will go to Amazon, you are searching for some particular thing, go to CNN, you will see, oh, the advertisement for exactly that thing. Because CNN goes and read the variables that Amazon website put it, then say based on that, then it gives this information, for example, to Google or some other things, and say based on this information, what should I show to these guys? And that's the thing that you will get it. Now, the idea of the cookieless world is that, I mean, these cookies that you will save, it will be much more limited, or maybe actually removed essentially. You may, there are some other alternate way to do this one. Maybe you will just do it on your own system. If you are a website, like after the login, then you will go there, this guy, you know this guy. So you can save all of this information instead of at front end, you can save it at back end, for example. That's one way you can do it, such that you will don't save there, such that these people, I mean, these browsers or the other program cannot go and use these free variables to make a personalization out of you. Because exactly these parameters that form the personalization for you, and you may or may not like this one. And all this information will be leaked essentially all over the internet, because everyone knows that you wanted to buy a Mercedes, for example. So it means that maybe you have money, you got some money, so they want to sell everything else to you. That's an idea that, I mean, personalization is somehow will be violated. But the cookieless world, the whole idea that, like, for example, Chrome wanted to add it, or Apple has done that, to the things that these variables will be not saved, or if saved, will be very private. Only this particular app can use it. That's the whole idea of the cookieless world, means that these cookies means information that will save, and everyone freely can access to that. They cannot access it anymore. And now the question is that in this case, in some sense, very private now, because that's the main source of leaking information in some sense about you. That is not there, but of course, then we need to, this is the way that, I mean, we need to work with that, or I mean, maybe I assume here, these advertisement companies, they need to find some ways that we can talk more about it.
Yeah, so like one really important distinction here is, right, like it's like companies fundamentally, like the first party data that they have doesn't change like much. The implementation might change, but they still have the same ability to collect first-party data. What changes is all these third-party data that these companies kind of just had access to, right? Like a bunch of like third-party plugins could see what like your Facebook data look like, or like what your kind of Google experience look like, and so those things are going away, and so I think it becomes a lot more important for these companies to like more carefully like look at, so what you would have gotten from this third party because they could read all of the customer's data. Now you need to more explicitly and consciously like account for how you're mapping the customer journey like internally. And I think this.
I want to just interrupt you. So can you define this term that we are hearing a lot? First party, second party, third party. I think that's the thing that we want to...
exactly. So first party, thank you. That's a really good point. First party is data that you collect yourself, right? So like you're the website, you're the marketplace, you're the retailer that somebody's coming to kind of come browse on. And what they do on your website, like they added this thing to cart, they looked at these particular items, that data you collecting is first party data. Now, if you pass that data on to somebody else, that becomes second party. The third party would be a more automated way, where they don't even need to be involved with you for somebody else to collect the data. So,
great. So in some sense, I think we mentioned that if you consider a graph, this is a distance in the graph. If,
right.
Like in some sense, customer is number 0, the depth. Yes. Then the app that you are working with that is at level 1. Then level 2 are the services that they are getting this information from, like some apps that they are working directly with the customers. And the third party would be those guys essentially that they are going one level more essentially, and they are getting this data from those guys that already collected the data from those guys that they are working directly with the customer.
Like so a third-party data that has built a Facebook extension that can now access your shop's data because they're relying on the Facebook platform. They don't even necessarily need to interact with you as the retailer. Would be like a third party.
Exactly.
No, thank you for that clarification. So yeah, I think these. And so far, I think the way we've seen personalization in a lot of different like implementations is that these third parties claim to be able to do personalization on your behalf without you needing to do a lot of conscious work. I think that's evolving now to a point where, you want to make sure it's like you start with the customer first, you start with like your first party data first, and then see how does it make sense to extend it, how best to kind of integrate the different sources of data. And so this is like from a customer perspective, you mentioned this as well, right? A very nice trade-off between you can still have quite a bit of personalization without most of the privacy concerns that people had in terms, because it was the abuse of information, right? Like which you as a customer maybe didn't intend to kind of provide. Like you're okay with, your first party getting that information, but you want to control a third party getting that information, which hasn't been very available so far. So I think this is going to open up doors for a lot more of server-side integration solutions. And these solutions can still have privacy at the core of kind of how they build solutions.
So I think that's a good thing. So in some sense, when we talk about this, generally we talk about first party. If you consider bipartite graph, actually, we consider like the customer was 0 and then 1 would be this level. So it is some kind of bipartite graph. We generally talk more about the first party and the third party data essentially. So in the cookieless world, in the private world, you are working with a company. So you have access to all these first essentially party data because this person gives all this information freely to you. At least the good thing is that here the person knows which information it gives to you. So if you go to the bank, yes, this is bank, so it needs some social security. Maybe they will ask if you want to apply for a credit card, what is the source of money. You will give some private information, and you know that either you will give it or you should forget to have that account. So that's a deal that you need to decide that whether this privacy is so important for you that you want to give it this information or you don't want to give it.
Right.
And you don't have the account or the new credit card. So that's the thing that somehow willingly you will give it, and that's fine. And of course, these guys, they can use this information. Generally, if they want to sell this data to other companies, they need to get some kind of permission from you, and they don't do it, sell it, because that might be some consequences for them. But I don't think that the banks can do it easily, unless for example, some of these, that again, these are on these fine prints that probably nobody will read, that for example, if you don't pay your credit card on time, then they can report it to this companies that they are collecting, like a few companies that they are doing this computing the credit scores for you. So in that sense, you know that if you don't do it, they will sell it or report it in some sense. But generally, you have much more information. And if some leak happens, maybe at the beginning it's hard, but later it will be easy. If some investigator, they are coming, they can find what was the source of leak, and they can probably do the penalty for them. So that's first party. The issue is more like third party, that in some sense the cookie were some of the things that there were not much control, because anyone could come and in some sense reads behind. You will see the browser, they will see all these variables behind. They will read all this information. These are all features of, in some sense, ML model or something. They can get a lot of information from you. And this idea of a cookieless is the one that there is no such things. At least you cannot, not anyone can go and access that. However, so now if you just think about the first party, I think the solution that currently the industry is working on it, I think we heard this from Trade Desk or others, they try to create a database that any person can come and willingly give this information to them. You may have some kind of unique ID over all these places. Even if there is no unique ID, they will find it, because you have some Google ID, you have some, for example, Amazon ID, etc. And they know from each other that, this is the Amazon ID. So they will match Google ID with Amazon ID, and this, they know that, or Facebook ID, all of them, they know that this is the same person, so they will do the advertisement. So in some sense, there is really no need to do that, but they can create one thing that everyone is using it. But the good thing is that I think that comes after this cookieless world is that still the people, these people can share this website or other, they can use these things, but you need to give permission. You know what are the information that it is shared between these guys. And again, the catch is that if some of this information, maybe you don't care about them, that's fine. But if you care about them, then you decide. If I don't give the permission to this guy, then the website that brings for me maybe more relevant items, and also I may need to pay. The same thing that for Netflix, that you need to pay higher to see it without ads. You want to see the ads, you need to register into this some kind of global database of advertisers that all information about you are there. But that's the very big difference between this one and the cookieless things, is that you will hopefully can go. I think it is still under development. I forgot the name. Nishan, do you remember the name of that?
I don't, but essentially it's kind of one consistent ID tracking mechanism across different channels that would be opted into this program. So a hash of the email, something with the email hash.
Yeah, I think that your ID would be some kind of the email. That's the main thing that they are doing. But again, the thing is that you can log into this website. This is similar to, again, this credit card company.
Unified ID. Unified ID is what they call it.
A unified ID, yes. So this is, it would be very similar to this credit score, the companies that are creating credit score for you. You can go there and you see what are inside, essentially. If your credit score is bad, what is the reason, essentially? And nowadays are more freely available through different banks for the people. So in that sense, the same thing. You can go there and see what are the information about you that they are sharing with each other. And possibly you can, if something is wrong, you can delete it or add to it or edit them. And that's an important thing. I assume that, in the future, I think it is still in the developing, the idea of this kind of unified ID. Was it unified ID, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea is that probably still, I think that's the whole, we are not completely past cookieless world because Chrome essentially delayed the things. Apple has done it, but Google on Chrome, essentially, they have delayed these things. But the catch is that I can assume that, and this is still developing, that I assume that you will go to some other, to website. They will add the same thing, that the same way that some notice that are coming. Oh, we are using cookies now. Everywhere you are going, you are seeing this on. We are using your cookies. Or you are allowed. Are you allowed to use it? I don't know.
It's a patch, right? And the amount of lens companies go through to make it like default accept all, and like, make it annoying for you to actually say no, don't track me. It's just like, to me, this is not the end state, and like, I'd like to move away from this as soon as possible.
Yeah, and actually, lots of them that I go personally, I will say yes, because I don't know whether if you say no, they allow you to enter the website or not even. But anyhow, so something like this probably will come later. I say that you are doing that. Do you want us have access to your unified ID? Things such that we can get information from you. That would be the word that then you will go there. And again, the most interesting thing here is somehow the trade-off that you mentioned between privacy and personalization. That I know what are the information that you know about me. That's the main important thing. And I can have some control over that currently does not exist. Anyone in the world can have some information about me. Like, I wanted to buy a Mercedes, that maybe I'm not happy that I'm everyone, because this can even go to darknet. It can go anywhere. So why the people should know this information about me? And I think that's the whole idea, which I think is a good move, essentially, that the people have this kind of trade-off on that.
Yeah, now, I agree.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything?
I think like customers, like would be absolutely incentivized to kind of sign up for, if something like this existed, to say, I want certain controls over how my data is tracked. I'm still willing to give like a good amount of information that's relevant and useful, but I want like anonymization. I want transparency of how it's used. And, once these kinds of things kind of collects, like if there is a platform, which Trade Desk is one of the companies trying to build this out, like if that exists and the user is engaged in that conversation, then like there's a lot of power, and lots of companies can align with that and leverage that same information. And like we end up in a better state than we did in the past, right? So I think, like we're starting that out. Again, remains to be seen how seriously like Google will take moving to cookieless and the implications based on that. But I think now is like a very interesting time in terms of like where the industry could go there.
Again, to everyone who is listening this live now or later, I mean, currently we are live, we are global, and we are, you can ask questions. LinkedIn actually is a good place to do that. YouTube Hangout is a good one. You can do it Instagram. You can also, send me an email, my last name at gmail.com. One question that we got was this one. What is the prediction for plant-based retail? I think like means, I assume, I don't know what is the exact meaning of plant-based, but I assume that, some companies that they are making some goods or something like this. But I think we answered some of them, but do you want to add anything about that, Nishan?
Yeah, not sure kind of what plant-based, like, I don't know if it's, if it means like products built from plants. Maybe it's around kind of beyond burgers and that kind of industry.
Yeah, I think probably, I will say that, plant-based in a sense is that, you create, that's again, my understanding from the question that we try to answer, is that you try to, create something. You're producing something. And like you are producing milk, you are producing shoes, you are producing, I don't know, doors, windows. What type of predictions did those companies they should do it? And I think that's the important actually question. That's one of the things that needs actually nice knowledge about it, that we have done it before. This is in some sense, it would be maybe the easier version of like Amazon or Overstock, that they need to do it just more than one plant, maybe several goods. So in some sense,
sorry to interrupt there. I'm kind of reading the comment. It says like vegan plant-based products. So prediction for plant-based. So I guess the question is like, do we expect plant-based retail to grow? And if so, like what would that look like? Is it going to go above? Is it going to go below the current state?
Great. But I think in some sense, still, I mean, these are the same type of time series. I think for this particular thing, and that's essentially the part that the science comes and the people who work in the area. I think there's some general approach you can answer it, but these are the part that, I mean, the people, I mean, scientists or data scientists or the people with the knowledge that they need to go there and then try to understand the features that you will use it in this time series, essentially. And what is the thing? So in some sense, it's still the same general problem. The issue that which features you want to use it from your experiment. I mean, if you want to use it for this particular thing, because even the models that you are using can be quite different. We have used it, for example, Overstock, Amazon, or others. And I mean, this is the thing that, I mean, we will be happy to help if you have particular things, that particular problem, because I think we mentioned a general approach here, but for a particular industry you may need some extra features, extra factors to consider it. And this is like the experiments and others that they come all together such that you will find these things. We will be happy to talk, I mean, with you. You can just send an email to me, to Nishan. My email is my last name at gmail.com. And we have Manas that he's not here.
Manas at setna.ai.
Manas at setna.com, that you can also send it. MANAS at setna, CETN. Setna.ai, not .com. Setna.ai, you can send that, you can send it to me, and we will be very happy to talk about it. So that's the things that, I mean, and again, these are like exactly the expertise that you need to work with this problem such that you know which one is more important, and you can do that. Great. So we talk about these things. So now we talk about cookieless world, the concept of, I mean, like currently we talk about this unified ID, but it's not in a perfect thing. This is just forming. And it's not completely cookieless world because Chrome is not cookieless. Now, the next one, I think maybe the last things that we will talk on this thing is that this actually gives a very good opportunity for on-site advertisement. In some sense, now that you may be, I mean, you may not have access to third party or have a very limited to that, then the website, like for example, Amazon, or I don't know, Facebook on its own things, Google, these companies, still these are big companies, or Microsoft, or any company that they can still use the first party to do advertisement. Mm-hmm. That is completely valid, and nobody can essentially violate that. And whenever you go to Amazon, you know that Amazon by default knows all the things that you bought so far. And I mean, if you even go to this kind of some shooting, unfortunate events like shooting or something happens, the people just in a few days, they get all this information. This guy bought this thing from this and that. Even some of this that I think I bought it from eBay also, they found out. So these are the information that you know that when you go there, they have this information. So they can use it for on-site advertisement. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing. So in some sense, now the opportunity for on-site advertisement becomes bigger and bigger. And that's the thing that we can go and talk a little bit more on that. We talk more about these things as well in the future. And also this concept of cookieless world and others, essentially in type of display advertisement, SSP, DSP. We have actually experts in this area that we will talk more in this stuff later. But yeah, Nishan, do you want to dive deep a little bit about on-site advertisement opportunities that we have because of cookieless world?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, one thing like the third-party based advertisements, they're pretty much always the worst converting placements on the website. I know that to be true from my experience, and it's, and then there's also questions about like long-term, is this good for the brand? Does this detract people away? Does this take your customers away from your platform? And, these are like, companies will have kind of various policies around it, but generally it's not a preferred solution. It's just kind of a way company perceive for like quick cash or like cash, but at what cost becomes the big question, right? So thankfully with like more internally sponsored, like first party sponsored programs, there's a lot less like you're still able to retain the customer on your platform. And then if you provide them like, and you should be able to provide them with much more engaging content than you would by getting these third party kind of services there. And then third, like these sponsored platforms, if done well, can also kind of help drive discovery on your platform. So they could be a replacement for recommendations or, you know, various kind of customer discovery tasks that you would need to build for anyways. So I think it's very promising in the sense that like this cookieless world may accelerate companies moving to you know, to more first party sponsored programs and kind of that providing a better customer experience.
Yeah, so that's, I think that's the one that we are actually talking on that. And so this, I think the whole thing is that we talk about on-site advertisement. A very particular things of that is called a sponsored product that you have seen maybe first at Amazon when you go and it says mention sponsored. Nowadays, it's actually in other things like Home Depot also you see that. I mean, what did we call it at Overstock? The name of
Overstock sponsored products.
Yeah, so almost all of them are a sponsored product, and so this is the idea that actually we are expert in the area. There are several nice problems. Again, these are very deep science here as well. It's not trivial things, and so the question is that, I mean, when in general, this is the idea that you may think about that if I see this particular background item or search item, generally you will come either from the search that the person is doing, a customer, or a particular page that page is called like detailed page, for example, at Amazon. And there is one background item or main item which is there. Now the question is that when you will see this main item, what other item I should suggest to the user? Or, I mean, you can think about this background, it comes from the search. So you will find the search, say, what is the most relevant term to this guy? And then if I show this one, what other things that I should show to this guy? And that's the whole concept of a sponsored product. It's actually very, it's not it seems maybe I try to present it in like a clean way, but it's a complicated problem. There are lots of things involved here. I mean, lots of things that if some filtering, some related versus unrelated, found the most related versus unrelated one. This concept of similar items and complementary items, these are very important here because sometimes when you go there, the question is that if this guy, should I show all similar items to this guy? But maybe, I mean, that's not the one that optimizes these things. You may want to think about that maybe some similar I should show some complementary. Complementary here is something that, like, based on the history or based on other information, we know that these are like co-purchase. The people who buy this also buy this. This is complementary. They are not necessarily similar. Like you can think about a laptop and its charger. They are not similar in any way, but they are complementary to each other. Another thing that is concept of widget based that was used at Amazon as well, that like maybe you want to, even if you want to show it, maybe you want to have some theme essentially. That maybe, I mean, which theme should I select? Whether maybe if you do that, this guy sells this one, should I have a theme of like winter, for example, clothes, or like, I don't know, different things that you may, or like for example,
brands too, right? You can have an assortment of products for particular brands, and then
yeah, in some sense, I mean, this would be even more limited. You need to have some properties to come here, and then inside again you have similarity and complementary. So but the theme also is there, and of course you can have a combination of that. If you go to Amazon, you will see lots of sponsored products at different places, and each of them means different things. So these are all, I mean, the science that goes there, and these are deep science actually there. We will probably talk about some of them in more details, the whole things. But again, this is like the area that we will be happy. I mean, if you have some particular problem, you can just email us and contact us, and we will be happy for your particular thing. And generally, it is the case that if you consider a particular business, there are some factors that might be more important for you than others. And how does the whole thing works essentially? And then on top of that, note that this is so far that we talk only was about the recommendations. That when you see this item, which item I should show you. This is more like called ranking in some sense, or suggestion. But more than that, then there might be monies coming there. So now for some of this is some of them also you will call it, this is come from organic search. Organic means that they come without money involved. Then there are some non-organic means sponsored. So far everything that we talk actually was correct for both organic and the sponsored. But in a sponsored, there is another thing, the money that these advertisers are paying, such that they show also your things there. So here there is a trade-off between the money these guys that they are paying versus the relevance. And which one you should bring such that you will maximize your overall thing. And note that, like if there's a company like Amazon, Overstock, or others, you don't want to just, for you also the fact that purchase happens is important. You don't want to just be short-sighted and just see how much I can collect from the money, that I'm showing this. Generally, actually, lots of them are click-based. So at least you need to have the interest of the customer to click on it. If there is no click, nothing will happen. But even after click, the purchase also is important. So all of them now become more complicated, that you need to consider all these factors such that you will show this one. So you have all this complementation of ranking, complications about ranking, about who you should show, what is there a team or not, complementary, similarity on all these concepts. In addition, you have money involved as well. And then you need to, from all this combination, you need to compute some, objective function is a complicated objective function for you, what is the best for you as a marketplace that you can show and essentially sell this product from different companies or from different partners or sellers. So that's the whole idea of essentially on-site advertisement. And it becomes very important. Why? Because now you have personalization. The customers, you know who is your customers, you know who are the sellers that they want to do that, and you try to do it, match them. That's, in some sense, that's actually marketplace. So that's always the case, that this is the interest of users, these are the interest of sellers or partners, and you try to match them the same way that you can think about Uber or Lyft. They try to match drivers to the people who want rides. The same fact happens here now between advertisers or sellers in some sense and users. Yeah, Nishan.
Yeah, no, thank you. That, I think you covered that really well. And then, there's a whole lot of like science behind that too, just like ensuring marketplace properties and like how do you build a thriving marketplace, and on top of all the predictions and ML that goes into it. So, and then there's the real-time systems components where you want these systems to react as quickly as possible, because you're losing money otherwise, right? Or you're showing stale information to users. So like lots and lots of technical things we could go into here. We'll absolutely dive into these things in future sessions, and also planning to have guests to talk about these things as well. So definitely look out for those. Thanks actually for clearing, mentioning some other things. As Nishan mentioned, here you have this probability of purchase, probability of click, the time series things essentially happens here. And then, when you, this is in some sense is a very complicated things that that actually involve lots of research. That's actually, I will say, a best set for a good set of problems. If you want to do research in the area, that's a very nice set of problems that you can see it from the econ things. You can actually, for example, the thing that they had it at Amazon, they had also some people, from people, social behavior, or the thing that these are more I think social behavior type of things, that they try to understand the behavior of customers. That's very important, because now social sciences are involved there. Game theory is involved in some sense, because that's partly
social science, partly essentially math type of things. Of course, computer science, yeah, the other very important thing that you mentioned. Now the whole idea of algorithms are coming here.
Mm-hmm.
So this algorithm, they should be super fast, because if you click something, that may happen actually. I have even Google, if you say a display ad, sometimes it comes a bit late. Or like at YouTube, if you don't have a good custom, like a good cell reception, sometimes you will see that there is a stop. Why there is a stop? Not because of the actual, things that you are seeing, because of the ad. The ad has not arrived, especially the video. That's costly essentially, and that should come, like in terms of traffic is costly, and should come to your cell phone. So in some sense, then also if there is a delay, then there is a delay, and the customer satisfaction is involved. So here you need to have a whole algorithms field. These are like some of these called dynamic algorithms. This is like actually more things that you may have additions, deletions, and you need to make sure everything you are doing processing on the correct way, such that you will get answer very fast. And then also cloud computing comes. Why? Because this is a huge number of things that happen, for example, at Amazon, Google, or other places. We talk about offline advertisement and this kind of SSP, like in the order of, it's a huge per minute essentially, even per second, how many requests are coming. You need such kind of strong computers and strong programs, in a sense, like very efficient. By strong, I mean that they can work all over the place and use all this type of MapReduce, Spark, and others, such that they can compute these things, and who is giving this to select some of these advertisements. And it is very interesting that here, interestingly, at some point, especially for example, when we talk about display ads, then cost of computing, it may actually be more than the cost of money that you can collect from advertisement. So in that sense, actually, you may not even to do that. You need to decide which one you need to go and even investigate whether you want to put a bid or you show it, because otherwise just the cost that you are paying is much more than the money that you are collecting. And this concept of compute cost is a huge thing if you work with the cloud, because then again, it's not your computers, even your computers that actually, you don't, this is some limited things. But if you are doing cloud, then for every access, for everything, you pay some money. And this money, the sum might be more than the money that you pay essentially for the this advertisement. We will actually have some experts in this area, and we talk more about this. From the experience that I had it at Amazon or other places, Google, and we talk about it. These are very nice set of problems and very deep stuff that is going there. So in some sense, the whole algorithms, you need to now bring it, the knowledge to use it to have a very sophisticated, at the same time, efficient algorithm that can do all of this, and you make money. Because if you are not doing this is a company that you can become bankrupted. You just pay the amount of money that you will pay for the cloud computing. It might be more than the money that you will collect from advertisers. And that's a very important thing that we will talk more on that. So anything more that you want to add?
No, I think that pretty much covers today's set of topics.
Yeah, so I think, and we had also answered, some questions from the users, and hopefully, the people who are seeing maybe this one after this live, it is available everywhere. You can just look at it. And the previous ones essentially, and I have some other type of lives on some other topics that you can take a look at them. And if you have any question, please feel free to send an email to me, hajiaghayi@gmail.com, to Nishan. Nishan, what was your...
so first name, last name, Nishan Subedi @gmail.com.
Or you can send it to our person who was helping us organize this one, Manas. And unfortunately, he couldn't come here because of... some COVID that is, I think, you should be very careful when COVID is everywhere again. And his email is Manas, MANAS, @setna.ai. So you can ask questions. We will be happy to help. If you have any particular things that we can think that we can help, we will be more than happy to talk more with you and talk about this. And I think, we are try to be almost 1 hour here, 1 hour and 20 minutes. We try to, always, this is the thing that I have it in live. We try to don't put it that much time constraint because it brings more stress. And I have felt this one when you put it and you try to finish it in one particular things, then you may, at the end, you may rush it and it's not necessarily the best thing. So we may go a little bit more. And of course, feel free to watch or listen to any parts of it. And that will be also available on podcasts. So you can also Google Podcasts or iTunes or others. You can also Castbox. All of them will be able to find this and listen to them. Okay, thanks for that. We have this type of thing, continuation of this, again, the third Monday of each month. We will talk and then we bring more experts in the field and we discuss about that. Thanks everyone. And Nishan, if there is any...
thank you. Have a wonderful start to your morning, everyone.
Have a good time, and any time that you will see that, maybe you will see it later in the night or something. Have a good time and talk to you and see you later. Bye.
See you.